Have you ever noticed how the very habits you call my daily routine might actually be the invisible chains holding you back from greatness? I'm speaking to you directly today about something so fundamental to your success that overlooking it could cost you everything you've ever dreamed of achieving. The shocking truth is that 7 out of every 10 Americans live their entire lives trapped in mental prisons disguised as comfortable routines. They wake up at the same time, drive the same route to work, sit at the same desk, eat at the same restaurants, and wonder why their circumstances never improve. All the while, they're unaware that these so-called routines are actually sophisticated mental cages they've unwittingly constructed around themselves. I've spent over 25 years studying the minds of the world's most successful individuals. Men and women who shattered expectations and achieved what others deemed impossible. What separated these extraordinary achievers from the masses wasn't superior intelligence, privileged upbringing, or even extraordinary talent. It was their ability to recognize and break free from the routine prisons that hold most people captive. You see, my friend, what you call just how I do things or my system might actually be the very thing preventing your breakthrough. While you believe these patterns bring stability and efficiency to your life, they're silently robbing you of your creative power, your adaptability, and your capacity for greatness. But don't worry, I'm not here merely to identify the problem. In this special message, I'm going to reveal precisely how to recognize these mental prisons disguised as routines, and more importantly, how to demolish their walls forever. You'll discover the exact methodology that has helped thousands transform their circumstances by freeing themselves from the tyranny of limiting routines. What I'm about to share with you contradicts much of what you've been taught about productivity and success. It challenges conventional wisdom about habit formation and turns standard time management advice on its head. This information is rarely discussed in business schools or self-improvement seminars because it threatens the very foundation of how most people operate in the world. By the time we conclude our time together, you'll understand why the most dangerous words in your vocabulary might be "this is just how I've always done it." You'll see clearly how seemingly innocent routines become mental prisons that silently limit your achievements year after year. Are you ready to discover what truly separates the extraordinary from the ordinary? Are you prepared to confront the uncomfortable truth about the routines you've defended and maintained for years? If so, you're about to embark on a journey that could fundamentally transform your life's trajectory. Before we continue, if you find value in these insights, make sure to subscribe to this channel right now. I share these transformative principles regularly, and I wouldn't want you to miss a single one that could change everything for you. Let's delve deeper into this insidious problem that affects virtually everyone seeking success but remains largely unrecognized. What most people fail to understand is that routines don't merely structure your day, they program your mind. When you perform the same actions in the same sequence day after day, you're not just organizing your time, you're establishing neural pathways that become increasingly resistant to change. Your brain, magnificent organ that it is, begins to operate on autopilot. This autopilot function was designed by nature to conserve mental energy, but in our modern world it has become the greatest obstacle to extraordinary achievement. Consider this. Have you ever driven home from work and suddenly realized you don't remember parts of the journey? Your routine became so deeply ingrained that your conscious mind checked out entirely. Now ask yourself, what other areas of your life are operating on this same dangerous autopilot? Your conversations with loved ones, your approach to problems at work, your financial decisions, your health habits. The conventional approach to success tells us that routines are beneficial, that they create discipline and consistency. This is partially true, but fundamentally misleading. Yes, Certain routines can serve you, but most routines, as practiced by the average person, are not conscious choices designed for greatness. They are unconscious patterns that evolved haphazardly over time, shaped by convenience, fear, and the path of least resistance. Let me be clear, the majority fails, because their routines were never intentionally designed to produce success in the first place. I once worked with a brilliant businessman named Edward who couldn't understand why his company had plateaued. He prided himself on his disciplined morning routine: up at 5, exercise, breakfast, in the office by 7, checking emails first thing. When I analyzed his patterns, I discovered that while his routine gave him a sense of accomplishment, it actually prevented growth. His habitual email checking first thing each morning put him in a reactive state that persisted all day. His mind was trained to respond rather than initiate, to manage rather than create. By contrast, those who achieve extraordinary success, the Henry Fords, the Thomas Edisons, the modern visionaries like Jobs and Musk, understood instinctively that routines must be servants, not masters. They regularly disrupted their own patterns, questioned their habits, and redesigned their days based on results, not comfort. You see, there are two types of people in this world: those who let routines happen to them and those who happen to their routines. The first group, sadly, the vast majority, drift through life wondering why success eludes them. The second group, the rare achievers, consciously design every pattern in their lives with specific outcomes in mind. What makes this problem particularly dangerous is that these mental prisons feel comfortable. The mind resists breaking established patterns because uncertainty triggers our primitive survival instincts. Your brain interprets routine disruption as potential danger, even when that disruption might lead to growth and opportunity. I've observed countless individuals who claim they want success while simultaneously clutching tightly to the very routines guaranteeing their mediocrity. They say they want financial freedom but follow the same money habits that kept their parents struggling. They claim they want vibrant health while maintaining eating routines that slowly destroy their vitality. They insist they want meaningful relationships while engaging in communication patterns that create distance rather than connection. The tragedy is not that these people fail, it's that they fail while believing they're doing everything right. They've confused activity with achievement, motion with progress, busyness with productivity. And here's what few understand: your routines aren't just impacting your external results, they're literally reshaping your identity. Each time you repeat a pattern, you're not just doing something, you're becoming someone. The question is, are your routines creating the person you aspire to be, or are they reinforcing the limitations you're trying to overcome? This is the true nature of the problem we face. What you casually call my way of doing things is actually the blueprint determining your destiny. And until you recognize these mental prisons for what they are, true transformation remains impossible. There exists a method so powerful for breaking free from these mental prisons that once you understand it, you'll never view your daily patterns the same way again. What I'm about to share with you isn't taught in traditional education because it challenges the very foundation of how most people approach life and success. During my extensive research interviewing the most accomplished individuals across America, I discovered that true masters of success possess an uncommon relationship with their routines. They practice what I came to call conscious pattern architecture, the deliberate design and regular reinvention of personal habits to serve specific achievements rather than comfort or convention. This discovery didn't come easily. For years, I observed successful people's habits, looking for commonalities in their daily practices. What puzzled me initially was that their specific routines often differed dramatically from one another. Some rose before dawn, while others worked late into the night. Some exercised rigorously, while others took contemplative walks. Some maintained strict schedules while others embraced spontaneity. The breakthrough came when I realized that the power wasn't in which routines they followed, but in their relationship to those routines. These extraordinary individuals shared one fundamental quality. They viewed their habits as tools to be wielded rather than rules to be followed. They constantly evaluated whether each pattern served their greater purpose, and they possessed the courage to abandon even long-established habits the moment those habits ceased to produce results. What most people never grasp is that the mind is like water. It takes the shape of whatever container holds it. Your routines are that container. Change the container, and you change the mind. Change the mind, and you change everything. I've developed a comprehensive methodology based on these discoveries that has helped thousands transform their circumstances by liberating themselves from mental prisons disguised as productive routines. This approach doesn't require superhuman willpower or dramatic life upheavals. Instead, it works with your brain's natural tendencies to create sustainable change through strategic pattern interruption and conscious redesign. Now, I understand you may be skeptical. Perhaps you've tried changing habits before with limited success. Perhaps you believe your routines are necessary for your current achievements. This is precisely why conventional approaches to habit change fail. They don't address the deeper psychology that makes routines so resistant to modification. What sets my approach apart is its foundation in both practical application and psychological understanding. I've tested these principles not only through observation of history's greatest achievers, but through direct implementation with people from all walks of life. Bankers and bricklayers, teachers and technicians, homemakers and executives all have experienced profound transformation by applying these principles. The path I'm offering isn't about abandoning all structure or living in chaos. Far from it. It's about establishing a new, more empowering relationship with your routines, one where you maintain absolute authority over them rather than surrendering your power to them. Very few people understand what I'm about to share with you. Even fewer have the courage to implement it. But those who do often describe the experience as nothing short of a rebirth, as if they've awakened from a trance they never knew they were in. You're about to discover why your current approach to routines may be the greatest limiting factor in your life, how these mental prisons were constructed in the first place, and most importantly, precisely how to break free from them to achieve levels of success you may have thought impossible. What I'm offering isn't just information, it's liberation, freedom from the invisible constraints that have limited your thinking, your actions, and ultimately, your results. Are you ready to see just how far you can go when you break the chains of limiting routines? Let me share with you now the fundamental principles of breaking free from routine prisons. These insights have transformed countless lives and businesses, and they hold the power to revolutionize your existence as well. The first principle is what I call pattern recognition. Most people never achieve greatness because they remain blind to their own patterns. Like fish unaware of the water they swim in, these individuals never question the routines that shape their every decision and action. To break free, you must first develop the capacity to see your patterns objectively. Imagine your mind as a vast theater where the same play has been performed thousands of times as the playwright, director, and lead actor. You've become so accustomed to the script that you no longer question whether it's the right production for your talents. Pattern recognition is the process of sitting in the audience of your own life's performance, watching critically as the scenes unfold, and asking, is this the show I truly wish to be staging? Consider Thomas, a gifted architect whose career had stalled despite his remarkable talent. When we examined his daily patterns, we discovered that he habitually began each project by reviewing similar buildings for inspiration. What seemed like thorough research was actually a creativity-killing routine that prevented original thinking. His pattern blinded him to his own innovative capacity. Once he recognized this pattern and deliberately altered his approach, beginning each new project by considering completely unrelated structures or even natural formations, his work transformed, earning him recognition as one of the most innovative designers in his field. This illustrates a profound truth. The patterns you don't recognize are the ones that control you most powerfully. Your mind follows the path of least resistance unless consciously directed elsewhere. Like water flowing downhill, your thoughts and actions naturally fall into established channels unless you deliberately carve new ones. The second principle is intentional disruption. Once you've identified limiting patterns, you must deliberately interrupt them with strategic inconsistency. This contradicts conventional wisdom, which celebrates unwavering consistency as the hallmark of achievement. But examine the lives of history's greatest innovators, and you'll find they all practiced intentional disruption of established patterns, both their own and those of their industries. Think of your routines as paths through a dense forest. Each time you travel the same route, it becomes more clearly defined and easier to follow. Over time, these paths become so established that navigating them requires no conscious thought. Intentional disruption is the practice of regularly leaving these comfortable trails to forge new passages through unexplored territory. I once worked with a successful sales executive named Margaret who could not understand why her performance had plateaued despite her disciplined approach. Her sales routine was impeccable. She made exactly 50 calls each day, followed a precise script, and meticulously tracked her results. When I suggested she deliberately disrupt this pattern, she resisted fiercely. "This system got me where I am," she insisted. Nevertheless, she agreed to experiment with intentional disruption for just 30 days. She varied her calling times, reworked her script weekly, and even changed the environment she worked from regularly. The results were astonishing. Her sales increased by 37% in the first month alone. By breaking the prison of her routine, she discovered that what had once been a pathway to success had transformed into a limitation. Consider your own life. What patterns have you followed so faithfully that they've ceased to serve your growth? Perhaps it's how you begin your workday, how you approach problems, or even how you interact with loved ones. These are not merely habits, they are the invisible architecture of your potential. The third principle is conscious reinvention. This is perhaps the most powerful and least understood concept in achievement psychology. While most people attempt to improve by making minor adjustments to existing patterns, true transformation requires periodic complete reinvention of your routines. Imagine your mind as a garden. Most people tend this garden by pulling an occasional weed or adding a new plant while maintaining the same basic landscape. Conscious reinvention is the practice of periodically reimagining the entire garden, uprooting sections that no longer serve your vision, introducing entirely new varieties of experience, and sometimes changing the very soil in which your thoughts grow. Henry Ford embodied this principle magnificently. When his competitors were focused on incrementally improving existing manufacturing processes, Ford completely reimagined production itself. He didn't merely enhance the current system, he created an entirely new one. This wasn't just a business strategy, it reflected his personal approach to life and productivity. He regularly abandoned mental frameworks that others considered essential, regardless of how well they had served him in the past. I've observed this same quality in every truly exceptional achiever. They practice what ordinary people find terrifying, the regular abandonment of successful patterns in favor of experimental new approaches. They understand intuitively that what brought them their current success will rarely deliver their next breakthrough. Consider your own life. How long has it been since you fundamentally reinvented your approach to your work, your relationships, or your personal development. If you cannot remember the last time you completely reimagined these areas, you may be trapped in a routine prison of your own making. The fourth principle is strategic discomfort. This may be the most counterintuitive yet crucial understanding in our discussion. Most people organize their lives around the pursuit of comfort, not realizing that comfort is the enemy of growth. Your mind expands its capabilities only when challenged beyond familiar territory. Imagine your potential as a muscle. Just as physical muscles develop only when stressed beyond their current capacity, your mental and creative abilities expand only when pushed beyond comfortable limits. Strategic discomfort is the deliberate practice of placing yourself in situations that demand more than your existing routines can deliver. I once consulted with a brilliant writer who complained of creative blocks. His routine seemed impeccable. He wrote at the same time each day in a perfectly appointed office with minimal distractions. Yet his work had grown stale. When I suggested he was too comfortable, he was offended. Nevertheless, he agreed to experiment with strategic discomfort. He began writing in noisy cafes, public parks, even on commuter trains. He wrote at different times, sometimes before dawn, sometimes late at night. The initial results were terrible, disjointed, messy, frustrating, but within weeks, his work transformed. The strategic introduction of discomfort had awakened creative capacities that his comfortable routine had lulled to sleep. Your brain seeks efficiency above all else, which means it naturally gravitates toward familiar patterns that require minimal energy. This biological tendency, while useful for basic survival, becomes a prison when it comes to extraordinary achievement. By deliberately introducing strategic discomfort into your routines, you force your mind to create new neural pathways and discover untapped reservoirs of capability. I want to pause here and ask you, which of these principles has resonated most deeply with you so far? Have you recognized the patterns that may be limiting your potential? Have you identified routines that once served you but now constrain you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Find that articulating these realizations is often the first step toward breaking free. Now, I can almost hear the protests forming in your mind. But Napoleon, you might be thinking, routines provide structure and consistency. Aren't they necessary for success? This is a natural question, and I want to address it directly. Yes, certain foundational patterns are valuable, but there's a profound difference between consciously chosen routines that serve your greater purpose and unconscious patterns that dictate your limitations. The distinction lies not in the actions themselves, but in who controls them, you or your conditioning. You might also be wondering, isn't disrupting established routines risky? What if my performance suffers? This concern reveals precisely how powerful these mental prisons have become. They've convinced you that safety lies in maintaining them, even when evidence suggests otherwise. Remember that risk itself is merely another pattern of perception. What seems risky to the imprisoned mind often represents the very path to freedom for the liberated one. Are your current results so magnificent that experimenting with new approaches truly represents a dangerous risk? Or might the greater risk be continuing patterns that deliver predictable but limited outcomes? Some of you might be thinking, I've tried changing my routines before, but I always fall back into old habits. This is perhaps the most common objection I encounter, and it reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of how pattern change works. Lasting transformation rarely comes from willpower alone. It emerges from restructuring your environment, reframing your understanding, and repeatedly practicing new patterns until they become more natural than the old ones. Think about it this way. Do you believe that the habits keeping you stuck are somehow more real or natural than new ones you might develop? They are not. They simply had the advantage of repetition over time. New patterns, given the same advantage, can become just as automatic and comfortable, but only if you persist through the initial discomfort of change. Another objection I often hear is, "But my industry, job, situation demands consistency." This belief assumes that consistency of results requires consistency of methods. Nothing could be further from the truth. The most reliable outcomes often emerge from varied approaches that adapt to changing circumstances. True masters maintain consistency in their vision and principles while remaining extraordinarily flexible in their methods. I've worked with corporate executives who insisted their industries required rigid adherence to established protocols. Yet, when they found the courage to question these assumptions, they often discovered untapped opportunities that their competitors, equally trapped in routine prisons, had overlooked entirely. Perhaps you're wondering, how do I know which routines to change and which to keep? This is indeed the right question to ask. The answer lies not in some external authority, but in honest self-assessment. Does the routine in question expand your capabilities or limit them? Does it energize your spirit or deplete it? Does it move you toward your ultimate vision or merely maintain your current position? The routines worth preserving are those that serve your highest aspirations, not those that merely feel comfortable or familiar. Ask yourself these questions about your most firmly established patterns. Your honest answers may reveal that what you've defended as necessary structure might actually be the very walls of your limitation. Now, let's bring these principles together into a cohesive system for transformation. Understanding these concepts intellectually is merely the beginning. Their true power emerges when you implement them as an integrated approach to living. Think of your life as a magnificent river. Over time, this river has carved deep channels through the landscape of your existence. These channels, your established routines, direct the flow of your mental and physical energy along predictable paths. To change the river's course requires more than merely wishing it would flow differently. It demands a systematic approach to redirecting its current. The integration begins with pattern recognition, becoming acutely aware of the channels your river currently follows. This awareness must extend beyond surface observations to the deeper currents of your thinking patterns, emotional responses, and unconscious assumptions. Start by documenting your daily routines in explicit detail. Note not just what you do, but how those actions make you feel and what results they produce. This inventory becomes the map of your current limitations. Once your patterns are visible, apply intentional disruption strategically rather than randomly. Identify one keystone routine pattern that influences many others and consciously alter it for at least 21 days. This creates what I call a pattern interruption cascade, where changing one significant habit naturally disrupts connected patterns, making broader transformation possible. A business owner I worked with discovered his keystone routine was beginning each day by checking emails and responding to others' demands. By disrupting this single pattern instead, starting his days with strategic planning and creative work, he triggered a cascade of changes throughout his organization. His leadership style evolved, his team's productivity improved, and most importantly, his business began moving in entirely new directions. As these disruptions create space for new possibilities, implement conscious reinvention. This isn't merely adopting new habits, but reimagining your approach to core activities. Ask yourself, if I were just starting this endeavor today, with all I now know, how would I approach it? This question liberates you from historical constraints and opens new pathways for innovation. Throughout this process, embrace strategic discomfort as your ally rather than your enemy. When you feel resistance to changing established patterns, recognize this discomfort as the sensation of your mind expanding beyond familiar territory. Like a butterfly struggling to emerge from its cocoon, this necessary struggle strengthens the very capabilities you need for your transformation. These principles work together as a system rather than isolated techniques. Pattern recognition reveals the architecture of your limitations. Intentional disruption creates openings in that architecture. Conscious reinvention establishes new structures in the space created, and strategic discomfort ensures these new patterns develop the strength to endure challenges. I've developed a simple daily practice that integrates these principles. Begin each morning by identifying one routine you'll consciously alter that day. Make this change significant enough to create noticeable discomfort, but not so drastic that it paralyzes action. Document how this change affects your thinking, emotions, and results. At day's end, reflect on what new possibilities this disruption revealed. Over time, these daily experiments accumulate into profound transformation. This integrated approach doesn't fight against your brain's nature. It works with it by redirecting its remarkable adaptability toward expansion rather than constriction. Your mind naturally creates patterns. This system simply ensures you're the architect of those patterns rather than their prisoner. When applied consistently, these integrated principles don't merely change what you do, they transform who you become. The person who emerges from this process will view limitations differently, approach challenges differently, and achieve results that your former self might have considered impossible. The moment has come for you to make a decision. Will you continue living within the comfortable confines of your routine prison, or will you claim the freedom that awaits beyond its walls? The principles I've shared with you today are not theoretical abstractions, they are proven pathways to extraordinary achievement. But knowledge without action is merely entertainment. I urge you with all earnestness to begin implementing these principles today, not tomorrow, not when circumstances seem more favorable, but this very day. Remember that every moment you continue in unconscious patterns is a moment of potential greatness lost forever. The world needs what only your liberated mind can create. Your family deserves what only your freed spirit can contribute. You merit the fulfillment that only your unleashed potential can generate. The responsibility for this transformation rests entirely on your shoulders. No one can break these chains for you. You alone hold the key to your liberation. The mental prisons you've been calling routines will not dismantle themselves. They require your conscious intervention. I leave you with this final thought. Your greatness exists beyond the boundaries of your current patterns. Dare to venture there, and you'll discover capacities within yourself that you never knew existed. Subscribe to this channel now and leave a comment sharing which principle you'll implement first. Your journey to freedom begins with that single, decisive action.